Welcome back. We are here with the Troponin episodes, episode 23. Friendly reminder, if you are enjoying this content, remember to like, subscribe, turn on notifications, drop us a comment, and let us know if you're team nut butter, team guac, or team lift happy, team lift angry. And you can find a whole bunch more of this content available at teamtroponin.com. Also associated with firstattachmentnutrition.com, who I believe is still having some pretty good sales going on, Justin.
Yeah, all through December we will. We got gift cards are 10% off all the way through the holidays. WTF and field rations are 10% off. So yeah, we got some good holiday discounts.
Right on. Awesome. We're going to kick off today's conversation talking about how much of a surplus do you really want to be in the off season and some of the rationale for why or why not.
Yeah, and for a little more context, Joe, I think this is a little bit similar to the discussion that you might have seen maybe it was a year or two ago if you watched some of the other big bodybuilding podcasts, namely Fouad's podcasts, because he and some of the guys he would have on would be advocating on the one hand for, if not a big surplus, at least a very large calorie intake. And those dudes are, or at least were, huge bodybuilders. And then you had, I think, Greg Doucette was the main guy on the other end of this debate saying, you know, you can really gain or have a very moderate surplus and still gain muscle at an optimal rate. And so I think, you know, personally working with Justin, I've seen very, very good rates of gain in my 3 off seasons so far. Eating, I don't know if it's technically true to call it a huge surplus, but it's been a huge amount of food. So, Justin, is it really a huge surplus, or is it really just the huge?
Well, you just nailed it. I mean, you covered it right there. I think people are arguing different things. Mm-hmm. One person's saying this large bodybuilder ate a ton of food, and the other person's saying you don't need a massive surplus. And they're both saying the same thing. You can't have them. If you eat 2,000 calorie surplus a day, you're going to be fat. You're not gaining, you know, a half a pound of muscle a day. So most of that surplus is going to go to fat. And so then, okay, well, that doesn't make sense. And why are these guys eating so much? And that's the thing. It's not a huge surplus for them. So getting big is simple. It's so simple. It's a 2-step process. 1, teach the body to eat a lot of good, clean, whole food, pick it, kill it, grow it food, chicken and rice, steak and potatoes, eggs and oatmeal, and then continually try to kind of like coax or urge the body to eat more. Always be looking to increase the amount that you can eat, with the caveat that you're not adding unnecessary fat. You know, we're trying to stay in that 8 to 12% body fat range. And when I say 8 to 12%, I hate using body fat because right now everyone listening has a different definition of what 12% body fat is. My 12% is true. Yeah. Oh yeah. You got guys, you have one, you know, like Shaq is by one person's analysis, Shaq's recent in shape photos show he's 4% body fat. And then you ask the next person, Andreas Munzer was 26% body fat when he died, you know? So what I'm saying by 12% is I mean like old school caliper, mostly upper body caliper testing on men, 12% body fat, which is ab outlines, you know, not fat. At the beach, old ladies would still think you're in shape, you know, or ripped even.
Add a tip though.
I like that's a qualifier.
If you want to give yourself more leeway there, just to be really hairy like I am, and like have that line of hair down your linea alba, down the middle of your abs. And
you can shave it in if you really, you can contouring.
Pictures on your Instagram.
Oh, we should.
We'll tag you in it.
Look at how lean I am in the off season.
Yeah, show us your stomach hair. It's team back hair or team stomach hair. But anyways,
I don't want to choose either of those teams.
That's like the, you know, like would you rather that game. If you ever want to win that game, there's a very easy one that ends it immediately. You say, would you rather give your mother an orgasm or give your father an orgasm?
Oh God.
I'm out.
Everyone's out. Yeah, I mean, well, most everyone's out. There's probably someone out there really mulling over it right now. But anyways, it's a 2-step process. It's easy. It's eat a bunch of clean food and always try to increase the amount of clean food that you eat without getting fat. And then step 2 is the fun part. Go to the gym and get really, really strong, provided that you're working the muscle and you're in a hypertrophy rep range or time under tension or volume range or whatever you define it as, that loose mix of what seems to build muscle mass, and get really, really strong in that area and then eat. That's it. You know, and so when these guys like eating a ton of food, they're eating a ton of food because that's where their metabolism is. And that's what allows them to get so big. And you can think about it, you know, everything that goes in your mouth is building materials. the more of those you can pass through your body. We don't know when protein synthesis is going to occur. We don't know when muscle's being built. We don't know how long it's going to. We know none of that. But we do know that if we can pass 5 times as much nutrients to the body without getting fat, there's 5 times more chance that when that stimulus happens, there's going to be the right ingredients at that area to happen. It's like so simple. It's amazing that you even have to discuss it or explain it, but it's not the surplus. It's the fact that the body has learned to eat and process and digest and assimilate that massive amount of food without getting fat. And it's almost like the cart before the horse, or the chicken and the egg thing is like, did all that food build the muscle, or because they have all that muscle, they get to eat all that food? But that's the beauty of it. It all happens together. Go to the gym, get freakishly strong, and always try to eat more chicken and rice. And so that's really what it is. It's not a huge surplus. It's the fact that being so big allows them to eat so much food that for someone smaller, it would be a huge surplus.
Right. So even to put some specific numbers to it, I think a lot of people will balk at the idea of anything more than, say, a 500 calorie surplus. And that's probably a decent rule of thumb, actually, because any more than that, and you really are skirting the lines of fat gain. But I think it's just the case that if you see a huge guy, barely gaining weight or maintaining on 6,000 calories, that's because his basal rate, or, with activity, it really is like 5,500 plus.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And even 500, even 100 calories a day is probably going to max out your rate of muscle growth. If you take 500 calories a day is, or 100 calorie surplus a day is, times 365, you're looking at, that'd be 10 pounds of fat, and there's less calories in protein synthesis, So you're probably looking at 15 pounds of muscle a year at 100. You're never going to be able to get exactly 100, but you don't need a ton. But it really is, whatever you're at right now, however big you are, however strong you are, now just do those 2 things. And if in 3 years you're eating 6,000 calories a day of meat and rice, you're not fat, and you're strong as fuck, you're going to be huge. You no matter whether you want to or not, you can try to not be huge doing that, but you're going to be. You're not, if you're doing eight plates aside for 10 on hack squats and eating 6,000 calories a day and have abs, guess what? You won. You're big. There's no way around it.
I think you just described John Heck.
Yeah. He's a big dude.
He's a big boy.
Yeah. But yeah, it's like it. I love it because it makes I have a career around the fact that but obviously there's more precision, because how do you know? It's hard to tell when you're getting fat because there's water initially, and water happens before the fat gain. And they don't, sometimes the fat gain, sometimes you lose the water and then get fat, and you actually look leaner because you're not watery, but you're carrying more body fat. And it's hard to know all those things if you're not really experiencing the sport, but that's really as simple as it is.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, now that we're in holiday season, is it okay if I pivot us away from the topics we kind of talked about?
Yeah.
So just with holidays and people wanting to spend time with family and things like that, and I'm sure, Justin, half of your check-ins from clients are like, oh my God, I hope I didn't get super fat, or they're like, totally stayed the plan except for 6 out of the 7 days is probably one or the other. Can you break down maybe some of the the numbers and the science of what it would be to actually be able to maintain versus gaining excess body fat over the holidays?
Yeah, there's no magic. And so body fat is an energy transfer process. You store body fat, you're storing energy in the body, and that follows a very, very exact numerical value, roughly 3,500 calories per pound of fat. So if you're burning 3,500 calories a day and you eat 7,000 calories in a day, you might have, this isn't exactly true, because eating food burns calories, and eating a large amount of food does a couple things. It decreases nutrient absorption. There's be more bacteria in the gut. The food will stay in the gut longer, where bacteria will break down some of the food. Some of it won't be processed as well because it might not reach the lining of the small intestine before it reaches the colon. You get the thermogenic effect. If you eat a big meal and you get all sweaty, that's basically what's going on. So it's not, those things kind of come into play. But if you eat 3,500 calories more than you burn, that's how much fat you gain, which is a pound of fat. However, if you eat 3,500 calories more than you burn in a single day of high sodium, high carb food, you're going to gain way more than a pound of body weight, not fat. You won't gain more fat. You will gain maybe 10 pounds of weight. And that's what messes people up, because we have this stupid ass method of gauging body composition by stepping on a scale and checking our mass. Now, 70% of our mass is non-caloric. It's water, and of the 70% or of the 30% that's not water, a lot of that is bone. And of that stuff that's not water or bone, a lot of that is organ proteins, which doesn't really change size either. So we use, if you could measure, if you had something where it's like, okay, this thing is made up of 100% of stuff. Now 10% of it, we want to know, but 90% of it is affected by whatever, water, whatever. You would never weigh that and be like, well, that's how much that 10% is, because you have no, it gives you no value. It really drives you crazy because people step on the scale and think that tells them what their body composition is doing, and it's not. The scale tells you how much water you're holding. That's it, especially in a day-to-day. Now you step on the scale every single day for 10 years, and over 10 years, that curve is going to smooth out and you're going to see the data, what's really going on. You step on the scale 10 times in a day, you have not measured your body composition, because your body composition does not change to the level that a scale can even measure it in a day. All you're doing, you step on the scales, you're measuring how much water you're retaining. That's it. And people, they do their check-ins and they freak out because the scale said 172.3 when they want it to say 172.5. It's like, okay, well, go drink a glass of water. Now it says 172.6. Now you're huge. You gain. So that's the hardest thing, is because that's the metric we use, and it would literally be like measuring how much your truck weighs or how much gas is in your truck by weighing it. Yeah. And you might be like a hotshot hauler. You haul cars. And so your truck weighs anywhere from 7,000 pounds to 27,000 pounds. And you want to know how much the 100 pounds of gas is in there. You can't. But that's what we do with the scale, and that's all we use, and it's completely useless.
It's funny too, because, well, first hearing you talk about the water weight, I'm thinking about my Thanksgiving last year, where it was like the only time like I actually did care about my body weight, because I was getting ready for probably my last powerlifting meet. we kept me pretty lean through most of the fall. Probably held back growth even a little bit, and then like a week out from weigh-ins, I managed to put on, I think, 11 pounds over the day of Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And I already was going to have a 10-pound or 11-pound water cut. Yeah. That was
tasty Thanksgiving.
Yeah, worth it.
I remember texting you on the way to weigh-ins, like, so I need salt, right? Just my brain was not even functioning. Duh. But it's interesting too, just thinking about like the caloric breakdown. Like, if you think about it, if you're really like, how much food is 3,500 calories actually?
Like almost two whole large pizzas, so above what you normally burn.
Yeah. And so even though people are, mathematically break that down, I think even just like having that very concrete example of like literally you're having to eat 2 pizzas to gain a pound of fat. Mm-hmm. How long do you think it takes the water from holiday to actually drop off so people don't like freak out?
I mean, it depends on how much you like. If you are a glutton, it might stick around the entire holiday season. But there's actually really good like national, epidemiologists, or would that be who measures it? I don't know. Whoever measures these things, they track large scale data. There's good data on, based on hospital visits, self-reporting. There's a ton of studies always going on. You can how much you think the average American gains over the holidays, and we might have talked about this, so you might know it, but most people guess 10 pounds, 12 pounds, 5 pounds.
So the actual tissue?
It was like 1 pound, right?
It's 1 pound, yeah. The average American, once the water is gone, once it's all settled, the average American gains 1 pound over the holidays. And that's the average American who's not trying to keep it clean during the holidays, who's eating the whole wheel of cheese, who's eating the dark meat turkey, who's drinking the gravy, who's boozing it up. But that's the average American gains 1 pound.
Yeah.
Sounds fun.
Yeah, but then you can say then the obesity epidemic, and it's always a game of numbers. Numbers rule everything. So then you say, well, then how is then why do people get so fat? It's like, well, because no one ever loses that 1 pound. Mm-hmm. So you start gaining that 1 pound at age 20. When you're age 50, that's 30 pounds, and that's assuming you've gained nothing during the rest of the year, which isn't true, because you have the 4th of July, summertime. You have seasonal affective disorder. You have like big events where you might, maybe not the holidays, but you have a wedding where you gain a pound through the whole wedding procedures over the course of a week or so,
The bell curves at play too, right? Like, to explain how people get really obese. Like, if we're now at a point where the average person gains 1 to 2 pounds per year, that's still going to mean a significant number of people gaining quite a bit more than that per year.
Yeah. And it doesn't take much. If you gain 5 pounds a year for 50 years, that's 250 pounds. I mean, you start gaining, or even 10 pounds a year, you only have to eat. To gain 10 pounds a year is 100 calories per day more than you burn. Not very much. That's That's you getting whipped cream on your Starbucks every day, or not getting whipped cream. That's you having a yogurt with lunch or not having yogurt with lunch. You do that every day. You start doing that at age 20. At age 50, that's 300 pounds you've gained. You know, and it's always like the most important thing in this sport is people always, it drives me crazy because clients, especially young ones, like they get worked up that when I only track added fat, you know, and they'll be like, but turkey breast has 0.2 grams of fat less per serving than chicken breast. You know, it's like, well, on average for that food, for that brand that did, you know, when they did a bomb calorimetry test 20 years ago to get a food label, that group of turkeys technically did. But that's not what causes you to get fat. It's this sport, what causes progress in the sport is being 90% good 100% of the time, which basically means, you know, like eating the right foods and never completely straying from the diet. Well, what people get wrong, especially the young guys, is they think what makes progress in the sport is being 100% perfect 90% of the time, which doesn't work because you worry about that 0.2 grams of fat per meal, you know, so you're talking about less, like several calories per day difference, you know, that's it. But then these people that worry about that, they'll give me their check-in, and every single check-in they have an unplanned deviation. You know, they went out with buddies, and it's like every single one of those is several hundred calories. Mm-hmm. So you're worried about these 2 calories a day. You're going to work with me for 12 weeks, you know, so that's not even 100 days. But let's say you're going to work with me for 100 days and you're worried about 2 calories a day for 100 days. That's 200 calories difference the entire prep, and you're stressed about it. But you, at least once a week, you have a 500 calorie deviation, you know, so that's 50,000 calories difference over the course of 100 days, or maybe not if you did every day, but whatever, you know, I mean, it's that small variation, trying to be 100% correct 90% of the time, that 10% that you're way off range is what ruins things. Being 90% correct 100% of the time, which is make the right choices and never go off the deep end, that's what matters.
That reminds me of I think it was a video you did with Brad a while back talking about like diet soda and artificially sweetened water. And I think the point you made was that, like, look, even if there's like a calorie here and there, if drinking that stuff on prep especially prevents you from eating even a bite of unplanned food, you're still coming out on top.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even more so, you drink that water, let's say it's room temperature and it's 70 degrees, right? What's the temperature of your body? Nearly 100 degrees, right? Let's make it completely even and say it is a 30-degree difference, you know, 98.6, and you're drinking 68.6 degree water. That water has to be warmed up to your body temperature. That takes calories. That is the definition of a calorie. The calorie is the amount of energy it takes to raise 1 gram of water 1 degree Celsius. So you are burning calories you're burning more calories by drinking that water and forcing your body. Your body does. It's not like your body has to warm that water up. It's that water tries to cool your body down. Your body has to produce heat to keep it your same temperature. So drinking that water burns more calories than the 1 calorie in the packet of Splenda. And then on top of that, if you really want to get down to the nitty gritty, aspartame is 2 amino acids. What is it? What's the one? It's the one that's like the only beta amino acid and phenyl. But there's 2 amino acids, and one of them is phenylalanine, which it breaks apart. It cleaves the 2 things, and the phenylalanine gets converted to L-tyrosine. And what does everyone take? Everyone takes L-tyrosine as a supplement. So, you know, and L-tyrosine is the precursor for the dopaminergic pathway, which is norepinephrine and epinephrine. So you can make the same argument because it's on the same size scale, you know, a very small scale, that you're taking Adderall. You're taking a fat burner, basically, and drinking those aspartame, because that's what aspartame does in the body. Now, it doesn't have that effect because it's a tiny, tiny amount, just like that 1 calorie doesn't have an effect. But if you're going to like worry about those things, then you could say, well, I'm offsetting that calorie by the fact that I'm probably burning 5 calories by drinking it, and I'm taking Adderall because of the aspartame. It's not, you know, obviously not going to make a psychological difference, but
we're going to start going to Walmart during prep and start stocking up on, I don't know if you people that drink the Walmart bottled waters, their flavor chemists like absolutely nail it.
Oh, I know, those are amazing, right? Yeah.
So well, good.
You can I did the math one time. I want to say 8 liters of I did it like a cold where it wasn't quite frozen, but it was pretty darn cold, like 35 degrees. 8 liters of 35 degree water burns a little over 200 calories a day.
No way.
Really? Yeah. So that's a half a pound of fat a day, or half a pound of fat a week, just drinking that.
That's
now, but remember, all things But that's if you're drinking 8 liters of room temperature a day, that's like 150 calories,
Okay. We keep our house at like 50. So really, just kidding.
Well, just to be safe, I'll start keeping my water in the fridge.
Yeah. But I mean, but that's a true thing. But I think, and now people are going to take this, and those same people I was talking about trying to do the 100%, 90% of the time are only going to drink just barely above freezing water. And what they're going to find out is that their physique doesn't change. And why? Because those things, while true, are small amounts. And that's not what makes the difference. What makes up the difference is the hundreds of thousands of calories over decades of eating meat and rice and doing the right things. It's never the 0.2 grams of fat difference between turkey breast and chicken breast, or the temperature of your water, or the temperature of your house. And I've seen that. I've seen people try to keep their house extra cold because they read that your body, which is true, but the 3 calories a day you're going to burn by barely staving off hypothermia is not going to make a difference. And the easiest way to know that is go to any northern climate, and everyone's fat. And so being cold kept you warm. None of us Michiganders would be obese, but we all are.
Yeah, I feel like I even remember some stupid articles back in the day about saying, well, we all diet in the summer and gain in the winter, but we should really be doing it the other way around because the cold is so good.
Yes. Because if we did do that, and we did it for roughly 20 years in a row, it would probably amount to maybe several grams of body fat difference.
Yep.
Wild.
So let's talk of water is kind of a good segue to another topic we had. And this is going to become personal to me the last few weeks, and that's just water retention and mitigating water retention, particularly off season. So I think I've been in a spot where I think body comp's been trending in a decent way, but water retention has kind of crept up over the last few weeks to the point where we pulled food back really just to mitigate water retention. And so I guess the question here is, why do you do that? What are the dangers of allowing body water to creep up, even if body fat is in a decent place?
Yeah, and this is one of the things that everyone listening, this is a problem everyone listening wishes they had. Not really, but they do, because the only people who get it are, you have to be big. Yeah. When you hear the really big guys talk about how uncomfortable they are being huge in the off season, and like people who are smaller, a lot of times they'll be like, oh yeah, I kind of remember when I got to like 210 last year, it was hard walking around. This is what they're talking about. It's a different sport. Once you get north of like 275, 285, it's a different ball game where you're now carrying so much muscle mass that it's difficult to get fat. It really is. I mean, I remember like almost getting lynched at the hospital because like an idiot, I made a comment around all the women I worked about how it was impossible for me to get fat because
that's a bad move, Justin.
Yeah, it was dumb. Yeah, it was very dumb. But because it was at the time, it was difficult just to keep my weight up. You know how much you have to, Dave knows how much you have to eat. I mean, Dave's at like he was like 1,000 grams of carbs 3 days a week, a lot of food. But the problem with that is, so now you don't gain body fat, which is awesome because you stay lean no matter what you do. But the problem is that is a lot of body mass, and even more so, it's a lot of fluid-heavy body mass, which is like muscle tissue. Muscle tissue carries a lot of blood flow, and blood is just water. So your body has to keep, there's things, however much blood is in the body, there's other things that have to go along with that. You have all that muscle means you have to have all that blood, which means you have to have all that water, which means you have to have all that sodium because the sodium has to stay at 0.9%. So if you have twice as much water, you have twice as much sodium, even though the concentration is the same. And so you have all this fluid. And that's why I always talk about why blood pressure control is so important, because as you get bigger, that's what starts happening. You have all this fluid volume. And so you can think how the body works. You can break it down to, you have this heart, which is a pump, and it's this thing that's pumping. It's pumping fluid through these tubes, garden hoses, and they swell a little bit and they increase in density. But for the most part, they don't change all that much. And they go through all this tube. And at the end of that tube, at the end of the tube is a coffee filter, and that actually, if anyone's made homebrew gear, they could picture themselves pushing a syringe through one of those syringe filters or something, and that's what you're doing. And so you have more fluid with the same garden hose. That's continuity equation. I mean, if anyone's taken like a physics class, they learn the continuity equation. If you have, you have 10 golf balls and you pump them through a hole this big, there's, the 10 golf balls can go pretty slow. If you have 10 golf balls and they go through a tiny hose, are you doing a "that's what she said" joke or something?
I can't help it. It's like terrestrial.
You have a garden hose and you. But you to put 10 golf balls through that when there's only one size. No, those 10 golf balls, that you have them this way, and the 10 golf balls can move through really slowly because they only have to travel this distance like that. You put them 10 in the side like that, they have to fire through to pass that same distance at the same speed, and that's the pressure. And so that pressure at the end of that garden hose is the kidneys, which is the coffee filter. That high pressure starts tearing up that coffee filter, and that's what starts accumulating blood flow in the body, and eventually it backs up into the lungs, and you get pulmonary edema. And that's why every bodybuilder who dies has pneumonia late, or walking around feeling sick or getting over some kind of cold, and that's what it is. And so you really have to be, as long as you keep your blood pressure down, you're reducing the strain on the kidneys, but your heart is still pumping against that higher volume. And if there's that back pressure basically, and if the heart starts dilating, you get what's called dilated cardiomyopathy, which is one of the first stages of heart failure. And heart failure is a really messed up term because it doesn't mean it's not failing. All heart failure means is that it's failing to keep up with the circulatory requirements, and some of that fluid leaks out of the blood vessels into the extracellular space, and that's water retention. That's heart failure. Now there's like different stages of heart failure, and the end stages of heart failure would be like pulmonary edema and death. And there's 10 or 15 years of fluid retention, or even more, before that happens. And there's massive fluid retention and lymphedema. If you ever seen those really obese people, they might be carrying 200 pounds of excess water even. But it's just something that bigger guys have to worry about. And it's not good for the body. And that's really where all that, I just felt terrible being that size, because that's a lot of extra demands on the circulatory system. So you want to remove it as much as you can.
Yeah. So in addition to, obviously we had to pull back food a little bit this time, but that's not always ideal if you're trying to push food in the off season. So what are other good ways to mitigate it? And in my experience, I feel like even just a little bit of HIIT that you have us keep doing is pretty good for that, as well as just a few walks per day.
Yeah. So you have to understand how the circulatory system works. So HIIT is obviously going to move fluid around, and so that's good, and that keeps your heart functioning good, which allows it to keep up with the demand. And really, to a large part, if your heart function is really good, it can keep up with that demand. As long as if you're only holding water in the off season, it's probably going to be fine. You don't want to risk it, but the HIIT keeps your cardiovascular ability up, and so the heart's able to deal with that extra stress. And then when you get into prep, you lose that water, and it's fine. But that's one. The other thing is the walking. And what the walking actually does is, I think we've talked about this. Your heart pumps blood away from the heart. There's nothing that pumps blood back to the heart. It dissolves out and then it re-enters into the veins. But what pumps it back to the heart? There's no second pump. And so it doesn't get pumped up. What works is the veins work on a valve system. So you have all these valves. And so like when you walk, you can picture your calves and all the veins running up your legs. You walk, your calves squeeze and get bigger, and they squish these veins, and they squish the vein and blood squirts up, and it goes past the valve, and now it can't fall back down. And the next step, it squirts up past the next one, and that's how it works its way back to the heart. And so walking forces that to kind of really make sure. Another thing that you can do is you can let gravity do that, as you can lay down and put your feet on the armrest of a couch so your feet are above your heart, and then your legs are laying like this, so gravity is actually pulling water past those valves also. And actually, that's really interesting. I used to be able to do this when I got really big and my ankles would swell up. I could lay and like put my legs on lay backwards on the bed with my feet on the headboard, and I could almost, it would be weird. It was almost like I could feel like that blood going back into my circulatory system, and I would have to pee in like 10 minutes every time. It's like you can almost feel it happening. And that's another good thing to do.
Something that I think most competitors do, but I hadn't really thought about it in the off season, especially again, I don't think people can really appreciate what it is to carry 300-ish pounds. Yeah. It's just seeing Dave is.
It's kind of amusing how fast a reaction you will get though.
Yeah.
Because all these strategies we're talking about to mitigate water, like even after just pulling back from 3 high days to 1 for a few days, I'm like, okay, I'm peeing a lot, appetite's back up, I feel a little lighter on my feet, my ankles are like as small as they've ever been in the morning, and that's within a very short time frame. So
yeah, that's the cool thing about working with really big guys. The hard thing is that everything changes so fast. That's why it's great if you're a coach and you can get like lightweights in shape. That's awesome, because it's hard to get anyone in shape, but it's a different world. There's a reason why the top 10 at the Mr. Olympia miss their peak all the time. And you get all these guys like, I never missed my peak. I won the middles 3 years in a row at the States, It's like, yeah, because Big Rami's getting 300 pounds. He's peaking that. everything happens in a hurry and changes in a hurry. Like you said, like the water change, it would take like a 150-pound person would take weeks to notice that difference. A guy your size, 1 week of pulling back a couple high days, and they change more than a 150-pound guy would change in 3 weeks or a month even. Another interesting with the water is that you see all the time that like the water retention when you fly, that's what it is. It's with the big guys. And so I'll see I never really get into it, but I'll see online every once in a while where a guy, that's bullshit. I never hold water when I fly. It's like, well, I didn't either when I was 160 pounds. But we talk about that valve system. Now you take your size trying to cram into an airline seat where you don't move, and the side is constricting all the blood vessels on your side of your legs, right? Your legs are crammed together, so all the blood vessels on your inner thighs are crammed. All your weight's on your hamstrings and your glutes, so all those blood vessels are flattened, right? And your torso, everything's smushed together. None of that blood can get back to the heart. That's why you hold water on a flight, because the heart's still pumping blood from the heart down into the feet, but there's no way those water hoses are kinked. Someone's going through and kinking every one of those hoses. Water can't get back to the heart. Now, little guys, they sit there and they're all comfy. Their legs are spread out. They're man spreading. They got none of that issue going on. There's a couple blood vessels under their butt that are kind of constricted, but the blood can work away around other things. But that's why the big guys have so much problem with flying right before a show also.
Yeah, It's a good point. Mine was actually pretty bad just this Thanksgiving flying.
Yeah, I remember at my biggest, like last time I got over 300 pounds, we went to Cancun, and I remember like Kevin I never really get anxiety, but I was starting to get it by the end of the flight. I was like, man, I can like feel the fluid not filtering. It's just I can like feel it. I felt like I had elephant legs by the end of the flight.
Wow, Carl.
I'm just gonna lay down in the aisle. Sorry, everybody.
You can just growl at people and they'd be fine.
There you go.
Yeah, well, like there's a lot of interesting, like the legs up thing. One way to tell if you're one of those guys, if you're dumb and you don't get blood work and you've been holding a lot of water and you're like worried that you're dying, one way to tell is when your legs are really swollen, go lay on your back on the bed backwards and put your feet on the headboard. If you feel like you're drowning and your heart starts skipping beats and you have palpitations, that's why, because all that fluid goes back into the bloodstream and the heart is already in some form of heart failure or dilated cardiomyopathy, and it's already dilated. And now that extra fluid volume is really messing up the electrical pathway that the heart has to go through. And you'll get PVCs, premature ventricular contractions, and you'll get these like fluttering, and you'll feel kind of like you're drowning because your body is basically telling you that you're not drowning yet quite in your lungs so much, but the rest of the things that happen with fluid buildup are starting to happen.
Interesting.
Please don't die.
Try not to.
Okay, thanks.
We're going to talk about the adductor stuff.
I don't know. This is kind of interesting though. So like for your big guys, when they do need to fly to a show, how far ahead of time do you like to get out there? Like in a perfect world, let's say you're on stage Saturday, Friday they're drying out, Wednesday, Thursday, maybe even into Tuesday they're carbing up. Do you want them
Tuesday
to
if they can? Yeah. So we can get there Tuesday night, lay with their feet up, get that fluid back in the circulation, and then start worrying about carving up on Wednesday. That's ideal. If they can't fly till, I would never want them to fly during the carb up. If you're over 240 pounds on stage, I mean, sometimes things happen, you have to, but you're making the peak difficult because we're gonna be holding water from the carving up. It's going to be really bad. So the best thing you can do at that point is like that valve system, make it work. Walk up and down the aisle as often as you can, every 20 minutes. Annoy the people, everyone else on the plane. Walk up, walk to the bathroom. When you're in the bathroom, kind of do some squats. If you can find room, do some calf raises, anything to move the muscles and contract the muscles to get that blood flow. Walk up and down the aisle again, do stupid things like, stretch. If you're a bodybuilder, you've already probably annoyed everyone for some way, somehow, because everyone, just annoy them a little bit more, but that's the best you can do if you have to fly that closer to the show.
I'm glad Nationals is in Dallas next year.
Do we know that for sure?
Well, we don't know. Hopefully it is.
I guess there's talk that Nationals might be in Dallas next year instead of Florida.
That'd be cool. Yeah, if it makes the Nationals better, Nationals was a little disappointing this year. I hate saying that because everyone there like busted their ass, and it's like, I really try not to say that, and because I can imagine like winning my pro card, and it doesn't matter, even if you didn't nail it, you worked hard. It's not like Like guys bash guys on stage. All those guys killed themselves. You know, there's no easy prep. Even when you're slightly off, it was still a brutal prep. But yeah, it was a little disappointing showing this year. You know, and it might have been the lighting. It's hard to tell because I've been at shows.
Yeah, it looked really weird.
Yeah, I've been at shows where that's happened where you're like, you know, like, or what happens a lot is you're at the show and it's like, okay, I agree with the judging placings. 1 and 2 were tight, but I have no problem with the winner. And then you go back and look at photos online and you're like, whoa, this is not what it was like on stage. So it could have been that, but
I think it's an interesting point to bring up too, just like what it actually is like going to a show versus being a spectator, like from the online persona. And I think a lot of people, if you haven't competed, especially at a high level or even been on stage a couple times, it's really easy to make judgments that you don't necessarily understand. And you probably don't know half of what went on to get from point A to point B. So we're listening to this week, like, if you're thinking about doing it, just do it. Like, you have nothing to lose and everything to learn. So interesting point there.
You'll learn more. The only time you'll learn, you won't learn as much as doing a contest, but outside of doing a contest, being at one is where you'll learn more about the sport. Like Andrew Jack is kind of a good case of that. If he ever learns to pose better, or maybe it's just the way his body is, but when he's walking around or transitioning between poses, your eyes are just like drawn. You're like, who is that? You know, and then like it's like something loses a little bit in some of the poses, you know, and the judges are only supposed to judge the posing, but they're judging everything, you know. Otherwise, Paul Dillette would not have done as well as he did because he looked terrible in poses, but walking around, he was a mutant. And so, like, you see Andrew Jack like in the live stream or in person, and that's why he's the talk of the shows when he's in them. But then you go like on Instagram and see just the mandatory poses. Yeah, it's like he looks good, but why is everyone talking about him as the next Ronnie Coleman?
Soft, yeah.
Actually, if you go to NBC News Online, if anything, everybody will look worse because they catch all the shittiest parts of the transitions.
Yeah,
it's like they can't. Yeah. It's like a miracle they've never hit any photo right when you're in the middle of a pose. It's always like you look like you're mid burp. You're like your stomach's distended. Every muscle's relaxed.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like
you don't set your legs on your front double the first poses by judges see. That's not ringing a bell at all. What about do you have any competitors coming up this year in 2023 that you're really excited to see on stage that you can talk about?
Yeah, there's a couple, but I don't know that they've really announced yet. For whatever reason, lately I've had quite a few transfers from other coaches that aren't announcing it, which is fine by me. I'm not here to be I'm not here for a popularity contest. If I get the clients, that's what my job is. But for people that are, John Rivas, former all-time world record holder at 242 pounds, going to do the Arnold Amateur. We just started prep. I'm really interested to see what he can do. He's got a lot of size, almost 270 right now. If we can get him peeled, we're taking an interesting approach. There's another client I have, Jake Patient, who just won. Yeah. And I feel bad for him because I think his prep was brutal, but he's had a problem. We can never get his glutes in. And so, so what do you do with that? You use like fat burners because he's a bigger guy. He was like almost 230 on stage. You use like T3 with a bigger guy, you're gonna like it's a tightrope to walk. You know, their metabolism can start running away. And so if we do that, he's going to be 211, 212 on stage and might not still have strided glutes. So what we did instead was just basically murder him with starvation and had him pretty much stage ready at 6 weeks out, other than the glutes. And so the final 6 weeks was really just bringing the glutes in. We were able to do some things, like we actually brought his carbs up post-workout. We was doing like 100, 125 grams of carbs just post-workout towards the end. And we were able to find to get his glutes. And John kind of has that same problem. And Steve Kuklo did for a while too. And I think I've talked about that. Like he did, was it the 2010 national? One of the years he took like 15th and did terrible. And he worked with Art Atwood. But it worked out in his favor because Art like killed him all the way down to like 240, which is what he weighed as like a 19-year-old. But he finally got strided glutes, you know. And so what we're going to be doing with John is pushing him really hard, really early, getting him ready early, and then, you know, which is hard because competing's weird because to look good on stage, to look full on stage, you have to look like shit in the diet. You know, to look full on stage, you have to be flat in prep. And like the top guys know that. And it's kind of even almost like a saying among the top coaches and the top guys. but it's easy to say it. It's a lot harder to live it. When you were the 280-pound guy in the off season, and now you're walking around at 245, you've lost 35 pounds, and you look like 185 because you're so flat, and spending a good length of time doing that, where everyone at the gym is like, dude, what happened to you?
Yeah.
It's hard, but that's what we'll do with John. Bring him in really hard, really early, and hopefully eat up into the show.
Do you have anyone else competing earlier in the year or middle of the year that you're excited about that you can?
Oh, don't say that I'm excited about. I have quite a few people competing, and I don't want to list all their names, or I don't want to say like I'm not excited about them. But there's there's quite a few like state level guys that I don't want to leave names. I don't know who listens. I don't know. There's quite a few guys. There's more than I could just list here, and I don't want to select just a couple. But there's a couple of younger guys that I think will be good, but they're kind of at the lower level still.
I think that anyone who's your client who's listening that just heard that just got really happy, because that just confirms who you are as a coach and as a person. That's one of the reasons, again, that we love working with you. It's like you're just an all-around awesome human.
Yeah, well, thank you. I don't think
I play this game where I'm like, how can I make Justin and Jake both feel very
well?
awkward?
The Venmo check cleared, so I appreciate you saying that.
I think that's probably most of the time.
About to wrap up.
Yeah. So friendly reminder again, if you guys have any questions, anything you want us to touch on, please leave it in the comments below. And anything you'd like a deep dive on, also leave a comment on. First Attachment Nutrition will continue to have sales throughout the rest of December. You can find more of our content at teamtroponin.com. I think I'm just rambling now. So thanks guys for listening. Drop us a comment and let us know what you want to hear about.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
For more content like this, visit www.teamtroponin.com.
This video is brought to you by First Attachment Nutrition, battle-tested nutrition, expert formulated supplements. Join the First Attachment revolution.